As KTIV celebrates 70 years serving Siouxland, we're taking time to look back on some of the familiar faces that have brought you news, weather, and sports since the station signed on in 1954. But where are they now? Tonight, we catch up with a former KTIV reporter and anchor who called Signal Hill home for 20 years.
Hello, I'm Kristie VerMulm. You might remember me as a reporter at KTIV from 1993 to 94 and an evening news anchor here at KTIV from 1996 to 2013. Even though I've been away from the newsroom for about 10 years, you might still hear my voice every now and then at the beginning of the newscasts.
This is KTIV News 4 at 6.
One of the things I'll always remember about working at KTIV, the people, of course. The people and communities throughout Siouxland that allowed me the privilege of being able to share their stories on our newscasts every night was an incredible honor to have. And the people that I worked with, that I got to work with in the newsroom every single day, because they were friends that were more like family. And it is a thrill for me to think that the main three anchors that I shared the desk with all those years, Larry Wentz, Al Jones, and Matt Breen, are still here at KTIV delivering incredible news coverage for Siouxland. One of the things that sticks with me during my time at KTIV is the incredible resiliency of the Siouxland community, as well as the generosity. As a reporter, I covered the floods of 93, 98, 2011 along the Missouri River, and I see that flooding today, and the resiliency of communities, the ability to come back and build stronger. That strength is what holds us together. It's the glue that is true about our community. And the generosity, friends helping friends, neighbors stepping up, and people and businesses helping people they've never met before because they know that it's a time of need. And I think that speaks a lot about our community. And as a reporter, I got to witness that firsthand. And that's actually a gift to be able to share those stories. Happy anniversary, KTIV. Here's to the first 70 years and many more to come.
Kristie, by the way, still lives in Sioux City with her husband, Kevin. She's the director of communications and recruiting for local real estate firm United Real Estate Solutions.